Welcome to the Wild Way. This is Imran Nanlawala, and I'm joined with my good friend Chris Grayson of Ascend Perform, trainer of many, strength and conditioning coaching. Chris, wanted to firstly, how you doing, brother? It's been a long time.
I'm really good. It's
How's
a little cold
lovely?
out here.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how's lovely South Carolina?
It's cold, but it's warming up tomorrow and the next few days. But yeah, it's been cold.
Yeah, here it's getting chilly, but it's real nice in Dallas. I mean, it's probably in the low 60s, upper 50s, which is nice. Can't complain, man. But wanted to talk to you about. I know you don't really follow the NBA, so I'll set the scene for you. But there's a player on the New Orleans Pelicans. He was a top draft pick maybe 3, 4 years ago. Zion Williamson, a guy who's about 6'6". Right now he weighs in around 280, 284, which is a lot for a player of his stature. Right, when you're 6'6", ideally you want to come in a little lighter, and he plays very explosively. So this guy's going up, putting up 360 windmill dunks, using a lot of explosive first steps to get to the rim, playing through contact. So really putting a lot of pressure on his body, on his joints, on his back. Um, Interesting case, man, because he was injured very early on in his career, so he didn't play a lot. And then he just signed a massive contract a couple of years ago, about a year ago, which is like a 5 year, 200 and something $1 million contract. But part of the clauses in his contract were, which is like unheard of, right? It's also like a slap in the face to some extent. A weight clause where periodically the team would come in and check his weight and body fat percentage, right?
Hmm.
Which should tell you a lot right there, right? That there's a
Yeah,
problem. And then
yeah,
second was if he doesn't play a minimum of a certain games a year, his contract is no longer guaranteed, right? Which is a big risk for NBA players. They would never want to do that. They would always typically, especially if you're a superstar caliber player, you go in with the guaranteed money. So my question to you is, a lot of commentary has come out a lot out again with the fact that he's not dropping the weight. He actually came into the NBA season in tremendous shape. He looked leaned up. He looked great, and then he packed on the weight again, right? And people are saying that the guy frequents all these like top tier New Orleans restaurants. Eats like 12 course meals. And he was already, Shannon. Do you remember Shannon Sharp?
yeah. Football player, of course.
Yep. So Shannon Sharp has a couple popular shows right now, and Shannon Sharp was basically saying he met him in college, and he says college players are poor. They're not getting paid, or historically they didn't get paid. He said in
Yeah,
college this guy was big, which means he was
yeah,
eating a lot in college. That's only going to get exasperated when you get to the NBA because now you have money, right?
right.
So people are taking pot shots at him. People are thinking that he's jeopardizing his own success. My question to you is more of a question about anatomy, physiology, training modalities. If let's say the stereotypical 6'6" NBA player comes in between 215 and on the max 225, 230, and this guy is, I said, 284. Okay, he's 284. He's had weight issues. He's got fat issues. Fat percentage issues. What does that look like from a training perspective in terms of like developing joint issues? Have you now someone who's getting a little older? You're working with guys as they're getting older. Do you feel like dropping some weight is typically a good thing to do as it relates to easing pressure on the joints?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think also like that's just a good reflection of what's going on the inside too. So if your body fat percentages are high and you have a fairly high amount of body fat for an athlete, and we could talk about what that potentially might be. I mean, that's not going to help you at all. It's only going to hurt you. And obviously, there's reasons for this. You're probably having some glucose issues.
Mm,
He could be inflamed. I mean, your normal, typical issues with the reason why people gain body fat to begin with. But the fact that you're an athlete too, and you're an explosive athlete, it's even more concerning. It's not like you're a sedentary couch
right.
potato. If you're trying to cut, stop, fast, jump, spin, do all those things, you're going to really be concerned about the connective tissue and the wear and tear and all those things. And yeah, it's extremely concerning. Obviously, I don't know anything about him. Like you said, I don't really follow the NBA, but with that kind of money, um, I would feel like, there has got to be somebody that's working with him, probably more than one person. And if there's not, I'd be asking the question, why? Um, yeah, because that's a problem. That's a really big issue.
So just to set a perspective, the reigning champions last year were the Denver Nuggets. Their big man is Nikola Jokic, who won the Finals MVP, if I remember correctly. Nikola Jokic is about 7 foot tall. He's a center, and he weighs, give or take, 1 or 2 pounds, the same as Zion, right? And he's
Hmm.
about 6 to 7 inches taller than Zion.
Hmm.
So, you got centers who don't weigh that much, right? Or that's like the upper weight limit of a lot of the NBA centers. So now, from a discipline perspective, as a guy who's trained UFC fighters, collegiate level football, basketball players, martial artists in general, jiu-jitsu practitioners, MMA fighters in general, do you find that like do you find like discipline is something that can be trained as you get older and older and you're already like a professional athlete, or do you find that look, you can have a good radar to say, look, this guy's just not disciplined. I don't see this changing anytime soon.
I'm not really, I think, I think it's probably a little bit outside of um, my knowledge base or, or whatnot to make a claim about how well somebody can become disciplined or not be disciplined. A little outside of my pay grades, what I was trying to say. Obviously, I'm not a therapist or whatnot. My own personal beliefs is I think anybody can become disciplined. I think there has to be rules instilled or guidelines to help somebody become disciplined. In regards to nutrition, um, if it were me, I would probably try to figure out, what's his diet look like on a daily basis. And then from there, I would try to somehow find a way to have him schedule his entertainment, and that would be eating out in that case, and try to slowly make that get from wherever it is. Say he eats out 60% of the time, right? I would try to slowly get that, down 50, 40, 30 until his weight's under control. I would try to instill some rules that he could apply and ultimately become habits that he's going to be able to be consistent with and set him up for success. I feel like anybody could do that. I think it comes down to figuring out how to implement that for each person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my concern is, I like what you said. It's a very appropriate and professional answer, but the guy's an NBA superstar. He makes maximum dollars. He has a professional team that's behind him. He already has uh, deterrents in his contract, which say, look, if you're above a certain fat percentage or if you come in at a certain weight, there's going to be penalties. If you miss a certain amount of games every year, your money's no longer guaranteed. And the fact that that hasn't worked yet is a little worrisome, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
typically, and if you make, bro, the guy's making probably 30 to 35 million a year without his sponsorships and his deals. The guy can easily hire a gourmet chef, hire a guy who's
right.
gonna literally fly around with him and cook him food that he
Yeah,
wants, but maybe in a more healthier manner, right?
yeah,
I remember I met once a football player, Hussein Abdullah here, a former NFL player, played for the Vikings, and he said the teams look at you as an investment, right? So
yeah,
you're gonna have people who follow you around. You'll have private investigators and people follow you around because the team wants to make sure you don't screw up. So the fact that all this is probably happening and he's screwing up is a little worrisome. As a guy who's a big fan of the NBA. But I get, my question to you, which you already answered, was, from a training perspective, I'm I'm assuming this is an uphill challenge because things only get harder as you get older, right? It's not
yeah,
like he's always going to be explosive and doing, what. For example, he was injured last year. He wasn't playing games, and they had him in street clothes, didn't warm up or anything. And literally, the first thing he did is he took off with the ball, did like a 360 windmill dunk. No warm up, still coming off injury. That doesn't last very long, man.
no.
You get closer to your 30s, that becomes difficult in the NBA. So I'm just speaking about it from that perspective in the sense that I'm a little worried for the guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd be worried for him too. It'd be nice to find out like exactly like what's the issue, like what's not working, and what are they doing. Like if we had more of the facts, so you could figure out exactly what your thoughts are on why it's not working would be really cool, because I don't know, maybe you have more facts, but obviously, I know nothing. But um, when you make that kind of money and you have, a team like, looking at you as an investment, which makes sense, and you would think, like you said, they have people around you to help with that investment. So what's the problem? I would love to know that.
Again, this is some of it. This is speculation, but if you look at guys like Michael, Kobe, LeBron, D Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, the money was a byproduct of their success, but the ultimate goal was the success, right? Was the
Hmm.
championships, playing at a top level. So for these guys, they had tunnel vision, and they strained relationships, they lost relationships because their ultimate focus was to win at by any means necessary. For some of these guys, it seems like the target isn't the championship. The target perhaps is the money, right?
Yeah,
And the target is the fame, the money, the endorsements. So it's very easy to get comfortable when you've reached your target. If your target is I got to get that maximum contract, you get it. What else is there left to get, right? Meaning, yeah, you're gonna play, you're gonna make sure you do the things that you do to get your paycheck. But I think
yeah,
some of these guys get very comfortable, man. And if you come from humble beginnings and you're not used to having the food that you want, the lifestyle that you want, sometimes it's not very easy, man, to manage the money as it's coming in. And you have access to like 5-star Michelin restaurants, and you got
yeah,
steaks every day, and this and that, and tiramisu, as our friend Tony Ferguson.
yeah. Oh yeah,
So
no, I'm sure. I mean, we've all heard many athletes from the past that have struggled with this, and oftentimes you end up kind of a cautionary tale. Hopefully, I don't know the guy, obviously, and if you like him, hopefully he wakes up and it doesn't become, uh, you know, one of those types of guys. You know what I mean?
hmm,
But I recently just heard, and you probably have heard this and know about this. I just heard this like either today or yesterday. I heard that LeBron James, when he was first getting into the league, he met with Reebok, and where he was at like a really long conference table that Reebok had, and he's at one end, and the head guy at Reebok is at the other end, and the head guy at Reebok gets up, walks far down this long conference table, slides a check over to LeBron. LeBron turns it over, and it's a check for $10 million. Right? Have you heard this story?
not particularly, no.
And LeBron at first was going to take that check, and he
Right.
this according to the story. I don't know if this is all true or not. And was getting a little emotional and said he almost started tearing up because he didn't grow up with money, right? But he didn't. He put the check down and he walked out, ultimately making way more money and getting signed by Nike, who he wanted to get signed from. So because he knew his own self worth and his own value, and he knew what he was going to invest in himself and what his ultimate goal was. So it wasn't just about the money, was it?
Hmm.
So, I don't know if that's true. That's pretty interesting story. Also, the other thing is not to keep talking about
Oh,
LeBron, but everybody knows how much money he invests into his health and wellness. And I think if you want to play at the highest level and be great, you really have to take advantage of those things, and at the very least you're going to take advantage of kind of like the low hanging fruit, which is your what you're going to eat, what you're going to put in your body, making sure you get enough sleep. So I don't know, I find it a little strange when I hear somebody not doing those things. I mean, I get it, not having money and doing those things, but there's got to be a way where you can figure out how that's not going to be so detrimental and ruin you.
well, there's a reason LeBron's still in year 20 is putting up the numbers that he is. And
Yeah,
I mean, a couple years ago, man, he looked like he was on his way out, in my opinion. Some of his
yeah,
speed started
uh-huh,
to decrease, his spin moves, his lift. And then you look at him this year, it's like, man, where's all this coming from, right?
wow,
Which led people to other speculations. But nonetheless, whether some of the rumors are true or not, the guy takes his craft seriously. And you
yeah,
can see that he keeps himself in tip top shape, year round. So, again, you know, these guys who are coming in, there's NBA players right now, Chris, making 20, $25 million a year. And these guys are role players, man. These guys are glorified role players, right? So you come in today's market and you come in and you're making 20 mil. And with all these advances that we have in health and technology, if you can play 20 years, bro, that's like, you could make about easy 400 million, $500 million a year if you
yeah,
factor in the shoe deals, the endorsements, and all
yeah,
that. So you're talking about $500 million generated just from your basketball play, right?
yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's awesome, and it'd be nice to hear if everybody kind of took advantage of that and did that. But maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know this guy. Maybe he's not, and I'm sure everybody's not doing everything that they should be doing either.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But this is a guy who's in the news now, and he's one of the few guys who's as big as he is at his height, but doesn't play like his weight dictates. He tries to play like a guard or very explosive power forward, but his body's just way too big. So appreciate it, man. It was a great conversation, and
Yeah.
hope to have you back on in the future, brother.
Hey, I love being on anytime. Just let me know like you did.
All right, man. I appreciate it, and thank you to everybody who joined, and we look forward to having you guys back on.